I'm Jen Carroll. I'm the Associate Director of Programs at NEDA, and I'm very excited today to be chatting with Noor Pervez about Autism Acceptance Month. Welcome, Noor.
Thank you.
Yeah. Noor's the Community Engagement Coordinator for the Autistic Self Advocacy Network. He is an organizer, autistic advocate, and expert and public speaker. He works to include members of the autistic community that are historically overlooked in his activism. Thank you again for being here.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So I was hoping we could start just by talking a little bit about what is Autism Acceptance Month.
Totally. So in a nutshell, Autism Acceptance Month is about treating autistic people with respect, so listening to what we have to say about ourselves, and about making us more welcome in the world in general. AAM celebrates autism as a part of like a broad community of brains, all of which kind of work differently, and all of which are completely okay. It shares the stories of autistic people, and it validates us as individual members of the community.
I love that. Can you talk a little bit about how Pride has developed in the autism community?
Yeah, absolutely. So Pride in the autism community is actually a really interesting part of autistic history. Autistic Pride and its roots owe its existence to the self-advocacy movement, which was founded by people with intellectual disabilities. So the story kind of starts with autism conferences that were aimed at parents, and parents would bring along their children who were autistic, and individually we would kind of find each other at these conferences and talk to each other and share space. And as we got older, we would keep in touch, and we realized we really liked the way we were as a community and that we liked each other and ourselves. And over time, as we got older, we started collaborating online, and eventually we formed in-person Autistic Pride events. And those things grew into organizations, and here we are today.
Yeah, it's like you really discovered the community and it grew from there. You've touched on this a little bit, but can you talk more about the culture of the community overall?
Absolutely. So the autistic community is one that is kind of built around the idea of accepting autistic behaviors, and that it's okay to kind of engage with our bodies and our minds the way that they naturally are. So that can include things like stimming, which can be everything from flapping your hands or waving your hands to playing with stim toys. So those can be things like fidget spinners, or if you've ever seen the clicky toys where you can just kind of press at them constantly and they make sounds.
Yeah.
But stimming can also take on just a variety of behaviors. It's any method of regulation for your own body. It can also talk about AAC, which is alternative and augmentative communication. So Autistic Culture accepts the idea that some people might temporarily or full-time not be able to physically speak. So having AAC can be anything from pointing at pictures or pointing at letters on a letterboard, or it can be something like typing and having your phone talk for you. And we accept that as just a natural part of the way that some of us are. We also have a broad range of gender expression. A lot of autistic people are trans or gender nonconforming. We have lots of internet spaces and lots of hashtags that are aimed at the autistic community, just so that we can share stuff that we're into and to kind of learn and build on stuff that we've learned individually. Another thing that doesn't get talked about as much that I consider part of the autistic community is talking about conflicting access needs. So a conflicting access need is basically like anything where one person has a given need and another person has a need that is in conflict with it. So for example, let's say that someone has stims that are very loud, or they have a voice that is naturally very loud and they struggle to control their volume. And we've got someone else who has sensory sensitivity and like can't handle very, very loud noises all the time. So that would be an example of a conflicting access need. And one thing that our community is really good at is negotiating those things and getting creative. So some examples of solutions might be having noise-canceling headphones, or having keywords or code words or hand gestures to indicate, hey, you're getting a little bit loud, can you turn it down for a little bit? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of just kind of working together and trying to figure out how we can all kind of live in harmony.
Yeah. Where do eating disorders and autism intersect?
So this is another interesting question because eating disorders can look really different in autistic people. So for example, ARFID is really frequently mistaken in autistic people for sensory sensitivity or what a lot of people would call picky eating. Um, and while a lot of us do experience those things simultaneously, there is a line where it crosses over into eating disordered behavior.
Hmm.
Many of us have difficulty finding care for our eating disorders because professionals don't really understand disability culture. And in a lot of cases, it's not possible to find someone who kind of understands the way that eating disorders can, in fact, look different. So, for instance, finding someone who understands that eliminating stimming isn't necessarily a goal for a given autistic person, rather than focusing on the eating disordered behavior in question. It's also worth noting that some types of normalization therapies teach us that it's rude or harmful to talk about food in a negative way. If the feeling is uncomfortable or not strictly speaking positive, it might be discouraged as a topic of conversation. And if you're taught that from a very young age, it can be difficult to express those feelings when you get older. It's also worth noting that many rewards-based therapies can use food as a motivator, which can
Hmm.
have an impact on how you view food down the line.
Yeah. So, what resources would you say are available for people who are looking for additional support for any of these topics?
Absolutely. So NITA is obviously a great resource in terms of finding eating disorder treatment in general. But for people looking for autistic culture more broadly and looking to better understand us from autistic people and from an autistic perspective, some resources that we like are the Autism Women and Non-Binary Network, which focuses on marginalized genders and autism. The Neurodivergent Narwhals, which provides like plain language content, a lot of it aimed at children. Thinking Person's Guide to Autism, which has kind of an integrated parents, autistic people, and autistic parents perspective on things. And us, the Autistic Self Advocacy Network. We have a lot of really great toolkits and resources that we think can benefit people who are learning about this for the first time. And we do have a really nice surprise coming out to celebrate Autism Acceptance Month very soon. So definitely keep an eye out on our social media for that to release. Hopefully later next week, but definitely before the end of the month.
Thank you, Noor. It sounds like there's a ton of really valuable resources, so we'll look forward to sharing those as well. And thank you for hopping on with us today to talk about Autism Acceptance Month.
Absolutely. I'm excited to share it.
Yeah. Thanks, Noor.